Hi, Pat the podcast editor here. What is the trick to winning more pitches? Today, Dan and Lloyd discuss what they've learned from pitching and winning business from global household name brands.
Number one, get way better at the discovery phase. The gap selling and asking the right questions.
Gathering the information you need to actually be able to pitch to someone, basically.
Yes, because what that will do, and as part of that process, you're qualifying as well.
We'll uncover how you can effectively identify the problems your potential customers may have, so you can pitch better solutions to their problems. You'll also pick up some tricks that you can implement today to wow your clients before and during your meetings.
A huge piece of feedback multiple customers from big brands that we've converted have said to us is, I feel like I knew you before I even spoke to you, and I knew I wanted to work with you before I spoke to you.
There'll be some listening to this now.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Now, it's easy to just tell companies what they want to hear to seal the deal. But real value comes from asking questions, getting to know the needs of the client, and showing you can deliver what they're looking for.
It's not actually valuable to have an answer that moment for most businesses. It's far more valuable to know that, that business was asking a lot of questions. They're really trying to understand and do a good job for us.
They want you to understand them.
Yeah.
They want you to provide a tailored solution and not just give them an out-of-the-box, here you go, have this kind of thing.
Because if you just had a script, you may as well just be a cold caller. If you just have a script, someone calls and you go, we do this, this and this. Do you want to sign up now?
Yeah.
So, how can you up your pitching game to convert more clients starting today? Stay tuned and find out. Right, let's dive in. This is episode 55 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
How important are pitching skills when it comes to growing a successful business?
Very.
For all businesses?
Yes. Well, ultimately, pitching is how you communicate to a potential customer, how you will overcome their problems. And it's a hugely important part of the sales process. Your potential customers have problems. You have solutions. You need to show them how you're going to overcome their problems.
I was going to say something similar. So I don't think in all businesses you'd necessarily call it a pitch. I think we're going to talk about the more kind of formal pitching idea. But the really important thing, being able to communicate the value you provide and how it helps someone else or a group of people or another business is really valuable.
Yeah. I think you're right. I guess, because trying to give context to listeners from different backgrounds, not everyone's a marketing agency listening to this. Others are, other service providers or product providers. I guess even though if you sell products, some people who sell products still pitch. Do you think?
Yeah, there will be pitches going on right now. So we're recording this one of the last days of this school year. There'll be pitches to for facilities manager or caretaker at a school of, we want to provide your soap and your toilet seats next year for your school. And we know you need 200 toilet seats and we're going to pitch you to why ours are best.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a lot of businesses, and even some industries wouldn't call it a pitch. And actually, I know within our business, we call things a pitch when other businesses might not see it as a pitch. They might just think, I'm having a call with this person, or, wording can be different. It might not be exactly the same, but I think what we're going to be discussing and the value in it is pretty much it could be applied to lots of people.
What I find slightly weird in the marketing space, I remember listening to Spencer Gallagher from Agency Nomics talk about pitching. He grew a really successful agency, and he when he talks to other people on his podcast, Agency Phonics, he has loads of agency owners on there, really good ones. We've been on there.
Really good ones.
He talks about pitching as if, do you pitch for any of your work? Whereas from my understanding, you have to pitch to win business. But I think I'm wrong.
So I think, Dan, you call lots of things pitches that I think most people wouldn't. So, and we work in a slightly different way than other businesses.
So let's explain what a pitch is.
Just to start. So, I think most businesses, if they were saying we are pitching for this, the traditional thing outside of COVID times would be there's 3 people from this business that you're trying to win work from. They've got like 4 or 5 different agencies coming in at various times in the day and presenting to them
how they can solve their
here's
problems.
how we can solve your problems, and we're the best people to work with. I think that's the traditional kind of pitching process where you're up against other similar bit or different businesses and you're going in a room like that. Now, we do some of that, very rarely these days going into a room, much more likely to be a Zoom call. We do some of that where we know that, I say we, Dan pitches, by the way. I definitely don't do this. But we go into it. We know that they're speaking to a few other businesses, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, you know, and we're going in, oh, this is what we can do. I know you're speaking to others. If you've got any more questions, let us know. What you also call pitching, which I think could be described as pitching, is when a business comes to us, we know they're only talking to us. A lot of other businesses will give a quote or send a proposal because you're only speaking to us, so we're going to send you this document. Here's what we do. I think our approach, and this very much has come from Dan over the years, making this a more and more successful way for us to win business, is Dan, even though we may not be up against other businesses, Dan still pitches them, really puts the effort in to win the deal, not just sending a document. He's going to talk through everything.
We've never spoken about this.
No. That's why, as much as I'm saying this to the listeners, I'm talking to you because I think you see it as normal, Dan, and I think actually it's a much better way of doing things than a lot of other businesses.
Because even current customers who we want to show them how we want to work with them next year, I'd still class that as a pitch because we're asking them certain questions about the direction they want to go in. We're then putting a presentation together to say, this is how we'll help you. I'd say that's a pitch. But from what you're saying, really that most people wouldn't say it's a pitch because we're not up against anyone else.
Yeah.
A pitch is where you're like 3 other companies and you're one of them. Right, okay.
It's funny
that we've never spoken about that. Yeah. I just, in my head, because I'm doing this day in, day out and I'm presenting and I'm, pitching, inverted commas, I consider it a pitch, but okay, cool.
What's been really interesting over the years, though, so we never used to sell in the way that we do now with these, in inverted commas, pitches. So our sole thing used to be send off a document that we would call an action plan. Most people call a proposal, and they usually got ignored. And now we work very differently. So
I've got a funny story about that. When we first started, I think this was right at the start. I remember my form of a pitch then was a inverted commas proposal. But what it actually was, because I'd never done this before, like a normal proposal is sort of outlining how we expect to work together, the investment fees, the payment terms. Some of the first proposals I did were basically like 30-page strategy documents where I'd just written everything in my brain to say how we could help you and what direction you should go in. There's the proposal. And they're like, what on earth's that?
I think it's interesting now, having run a business for a few years, knowing as a decision maker, if I got given a 30-page proposal,
you'd hate them.
I would absolutely hate that.
That's an instant no.
Yeah, and I think with, we're kind of skipping around what we're going to talk about, but with pitching, I think knowing what the other person actually wants is really important.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of businesses, and we've made the mistake in the past, we're going to tell you this good stuff we're going to do for you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what you want. We're going to do this for you.
The funny thing is, we never, again, thinking of how crap we were when we started, we never really asked enough good questions to even know what they wanted. We just thought we knew what we'd do for them before understanding what they needed.
Yes.
Which sounds mental.
And now it makes sense why people didn't respond.
Yeah. You need this thing. They're like, you don't even know us. You haven't even spoken to us.
Do you know what I really don't like when people are pitching their business?
What?
Sorry, just randomly coming in with this. When people don't make it clear what they're actually going to do. So they say, so I meet someone and they kind of pitch their business to me and go, and I'm like, oh, what do you do then? They go, so what we do is we help businesses increase profits. And that's how they start their pitch. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So and that could be 1,000 things.
Yeah, that could be 1,000 things. And then you find out that they sell pencils, but they sell it cheaper than other people. So your profits will increase.
Right, yeah.
And that really annoys me. I just want people to say, we will give you the cheapest pencils you can find.
Thing is, I think this comes from, I remember going to networking meetings and stuff, we've spoken in previous episodes, where you stand up and talk about what you do. I remember going to one where there was a person presenting a small presentation, how you can better communicate what you do. And they were preaching to say, like, make it really, really focused on deliverables and that kind of thing. Whereas, you know, people just want you to be a normal person and just, it's like, what do? You make pencils, great. Rather than some fancy pants, we reduce the amount of wood that comes from da-da-da-da-da. It's like,
I think it's
say what you do, mate.
Yeah, I think it's gone too far that way now, because everyone in the room's going, we help businesses increase profits. And then when you actually get behind it, okay, you sell pencils, you're an accountant.
Yeah.
You sell toilet seats, you're a marketing agency, but you're all saying you do the same thing.
We make you more efficient.
Yeah. So, moving on with, for people that haven't pitched, or maybe people that are pitching as part of their work, what does our pitching process involve then? Because it's very much led by you, and I don't have much of an input these days.
So, what we actually do now is ask questions. Unlike before, we start with, so someone will get in touch with us either through the website, through LinkedIn, through a recommendation, through a direct email, and say, so, you know, we're interested in working with you. Then I'd set up an initial discovery call, which prior to COVID, this is mental. Like, prior to COVID, pretty much every one of those would be an in-person meeting. But now it's a Zoom call where we get to know them, ask them a bit about do some research before, ask them a bit about their business, what they're looking to achieve, and ask some structured questions that seem like a natural conversation, but are very strategically driven from our part.
Yeah.
To really dissect what is their problem, where do they want to be in the future, what's like the end goal, and figure out the gap between where they are now, where they want to be, and then start to ask questions to really dissect that and understand if we would be, like, how we could help them and if we're right to help them. And there's a really, really, really good book called Gap Selling by a guy called Keenan that I learned a very structured way of doing a discovery call. And in the book, it literally is very practical. It's got like the questions.
A guy called Keenan.
Yeah.
Is that his first name?
He just calls himself Keenan.
Oh, he's a one name. He's like Adele or Seal.
I haven't looked too much into it because I don't care that much. But he just calls himself Keenan. On his LinkedIn, he's Keenan.
Okay. Cool.
Interesting, but I guess that's his branding thing.
Yeah.
And he really dissects these questions, and he talks about discovering the current state. Where is this person you're talking to? What is their current state? So, you know, tell me a bit about your current business situation and how marketing's working for you. Are you getting any results? And they'll be like, well, we're doing some leaflets and we're dropping them to the local area, or I
think this is interesting because previously, when we were selling years ago, I think we'd probably get too excited and start telling them what we could do for them.
Yeah, telling them what they want.
So they call and say, we're interested in working with them. We go, we can do this, this and this. And I think it's come such a long way, and I've seen so much improvement now, like you're saying. Most of that initial part is asking them questions, not telling them anything we do, basically.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's this way more structured approach helps you get to a better output because you suggest something that's way more suited to them. And also you can very quickly understand if someone isn't right for you. Like before, we wouldn't ask enough questions. We'd just basically know we wanted to work with them before we knew anything, their budget, what their problems were. We would be like, yeah, we can help. Whereas now we're asking very structured questions to really find the ideal customers that we know we can really add value to.
And it makes sense as well. I think if you think of yourself as a customer for most things aren't time sensitive, like needing the answer straight away, especially when you're working with bigger projects or bigger budgets and things. So actually, where we used to just say, you know, on the first call we'd ever spoken to someone, the phone had just rung, we'd say, we can do this stuff. It's not actually valuable to have an answer that moment for most businesses. It's far more valuable to know that, that business was asking a lot of questions. They're really trying to understand and do a good job for us.
They want you to understand them.
Yeah.
They want you to provide a tailored solution and not just give them an out-of-the-box, Here you go, have this kind of thing.
Because if you just had a script, you may as well just be a cold caller. If you just have a script, someone calls and you go, we do this, this, and this. Do you want to sign up now?
Yeah. So going back to that structured book, 3 parts. The where are you now? Asking questions about that, about their current state, and also that can help you understand more the problems they have. Are you facing any challenges with your current marketing? Is it delivering the results you want? If not, why not? What are you doing? If those questions really help you understand where they are now, then you can start to ask questions about the future. Where do you want to be? If you and I were to work together and this was to all work out perfectly, what would success look like? And that's a question that's really worked well in this situation. What would success look like? And then it gets them thinking, oh, wait a minute, if we did get everything we want, we'd increase turnover by £500,000. And it starts to get the granular detail of what they actually want.
You can also judge how realistic that is in the timeframes they're talking about and that kind of thing. If they're saying, we want to be the number 1 toilet seat brand in the world.
Have you ever sold a toilet seat? No. Is it different to any other toilet seats? No. Probably not going to be then.
Yeah. And interestingly, I think these questions often kind of let us know early on who we shouldn't be trying to pitch and who we shouldn't be trying to sell to and who we shouldn't be trying to work with.
Yep.
Which before, in the business, very inefficient way of working, we would have put all this effort into loads of businesses that didn't have the budget, weren't right for us, were never going to work with us in reality, but we didn't realise that at the time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, when I hear you on the phone and on Zoom calls, if you realise that their expectations are really unrealistic, or there's red flags of them kind of going, we work with 4 agencies this year and they're all rubbish. You think, there's a consistent thing and that's you as a customer. So actually, are you right for us to work with?
And confidence helps with that. I feel confidence if someone says, right, we've got £500,000 budget to spend with you potentially, but we want to be bigger than Amazon tomorrow. Like, that's an exaggerated version, but I'd be happy to say, sorry, but I'm not going to take your £500,000 because that's just completely unrealistic.
That's also been positive sometimes, because saying I'm not going to take that money because that's really unrealistic, and saying
builds trust.
Other people will take your money and say they can do that, but they can't.
Yeah. I think that's what's helped us as well. Part of our values of being ethical, and although we've done it for the right reason, the byproduct of that is actually helping us grow more.
Yeah.
Although we're doing it because we don't want to just promise things, over-promise, under-deliver. Yeah. So final part of this book, and then we can move on, is you're asking the questions about the future state. Where do you want to be? What does success look like? And then the really crucial part is the gap. That's why it's called gap selling. Then you can start to establish a gap from where they are now to where they want to be. And that gap, you can sell on that gap. So you can say to them, right, so you're in this current place, you're turning over £500,000. You want to get to 2 million in the next 2 years. You're not currently doing anything good in marketing to do that that's getting trackable results. What we could do in that process of getting from here to there is help you with X, Y, Z, and you can really start to sell on that gap, because then they start to think, oh, I realise I've got a gap, and you can also start to get to the
gap so many times.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Then you can also start to get to the root cause of their problem as well. Gap. But yeah, buy that book. I'm not going to say its name because I've said that word so many times.
And Keenan wrote it.
Keenan. Do you remember we used to watch Keenan and Kel? Who loves orange soda?
Kel loves orange soda.
Is it true?
I do.
Did
very specific reference
did he
to only
die?
certain.
Or was that like one of those
that's
things
one of
where
those
people say
rumours that people put on Facebook?
That was a good show.
Such
anyway.
a headline reader then. We used to watch that at our nan and granddad's house. Do you remember that in the school holidays?
Do you remember Nan used to give us like spam and cut it up?
Spam sandwiches used to have there.
Yeah.
Got a bit off topic.
Sorry.
Do you remember when we turned up to the client that was expecting a pitch and we didn't know they wanted a pitch?
Yeah, that was embarrassing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was embarrassing.
What, we drove all the way to Brighton?
It was embarrassing at the time for me, but not for you because you didn't realise at the time.
Yeah, because I wasn't aware of the situation.
I'm good at reading people. But yeah, we went in, we thought, so we'd sent them one of these action plans. We used to do this massive document.
Yeah. We thought, there you go.
They were like, oh yeah, can you come in and talk us through this?
Yeah.
It said something like that. So we thought, oh, they're really interested. They want to chat about this. So we went with our document printed. Do you want to talk about this document? And there was a few things. So I think there were 3 people that we were supposed to be pitching to, and we didn't realise. Went in, and they sort of said, right, yeah, if you want to plug in, there's that. And who we've come like, plug in? Don't need to plug in a paper document, mate.
Oh no!
So that was the first kind of red flag. And they're like, where do you want to plug in? I've got nothing to plug.
We didn't even have a laptop.
And then they were start meeting. So nice to meet you. Start whenever you want to. And we're like, start what? The discussion? Yeah, I can start talking.
It's so.
And then
cringy.
I just
Like
felt more and more
the
cringy.
funniest
And
thing-
Dan came out of it.
the funniest thing, I came out of it. I went, that went well, didn't it? And Lloyd went, no, that went terribly, Dan.
That they wanted a pitch, did they? Yes. Yeah, that went
I have
terribly.
got better since then. I'm not that
Yeah.
unself-aware.
But I think that this is a good point. I think
That's by not asking the right questions.
Yeah, ask
and
the
not having
right
experience.
questions. People will make it clear if they want you to pitch to them. So, and if they don't, say, do
Ask
you
them.
want us to pitch, or do you want us to just have a discussion?
Or we asked
Make
everyone
sure-
after that.
Yes, yes.
We really went over the top
Yeah.
asking after that.
Yeah.
Do you want a presentation? How long do you want the presentation? What colour do you want it?
So, how can our listeners, if our listeners are pitching or are
Mm.
thinking now, I usually send quotes, and now I should be having like a half an hour call where I can pitch to
Mm-hmm.
my clients to try and convert more. What can they do to convert more of them? Because that's what everyone's going to want to know.
Number one tip, there's a few, but number one, get way better at the discovery phase. Everything we've said prior to this specific point in the podcast has been about the discovery phase, pretty much. Like the gap selling and asking the right questions.
Gathering the information you need to actually be able to pitch to someone, basically.
Yes, because what that will do, and as part of that process, you're qualifying as well. You're figuring out if they've got the budget. There's an acronym MAN we've used: means, authority, need. Do they have the means, the budget? Do they have the authority? Are they the decision maker? And if they are, is there anyone else involved? And do they actually have a need for this? By asking the right questions, you really understand, do they actually have a problem that you're the best company to solve that problem? And that's something that we've got better at as well. If someone's like, we're looking to rank number 1 in Google, it's like, you probably want to look into SEO, which we've got partner agencies that do that. We wouldn't do that. So really getting better at that discovery phase. And how do you get better at that? I really recommend reading that book because it literally breaks it down. Everything I've said in way more detail.
Keenan.
Yes, Keenan.
Gaps.
I'm not going to say it again. So that's the first thing, really getting better at that discovery phase. Secondly, and this has been where I feel we've really smashed it in terms of what we're good at. We've done lots of things wrong, but this is where we really are, what we're good at, is put more effort into pre-sales inbound content. So content that is value adding, that helps potential customers get to know you before you even have that discovery call. A huge piece of feedback multiple customers from big brands that we've converted have said to us is, I feel like I knew you before I even spoke to you, and I knew I wanted to work with you before I spoke to you.
There'll be some listening to this now.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Because one person that we now work, an MD from a business said, as the first thing, did Lloyd get his Bitcoin? And that's because
brilliant.
we'd spoken on this podcast about how I lost
£4 million.
Bitcoin that's worth millions.
Go and listen to that episode if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah. But it's so interesting. And starting a kind of a pitch with someone already feeling like they know you and being bought into you as a person. Because if they listen to your podcast and stuff or see your content and think they are rubbish at what they do and they're
They won't
dickheads,
get in touch.
they're not going to want you to pitch. So once you're in that room or in the Zoom chat.
They've pre-qualified themselves. This is why our conversion rate has been steadily increasing since we've got better at this, because the people who get in touch with you already completely get you because you've done such a good job with your content of showing your personality, showing the results you achieve, because if you've got a really comprehensive content strategy, you should be sharing case studies and examples and that kind of thing. And they're calling you. They've basically done a lot of the upfront work already. It's basically the opposite of a cold call. Cold call, you have no idea who this person is. Hi, do you want to buy this thing? No way. don't trust you, don't know you. Even if you've got a good solution, got no trust with you, it's the opposite of that. They've pre-qualified themselves by listening and watching your content. So that's been a huge benefit to us with not just converting more, but getting bigger, better opportunities.
You said just then about communicating evidence of like the results you get and stuff, and I think that's a massive thing in our pitches that's it makes it really easy to convince people. So basically, imagine whatever business you're in, if you can have a pitch and go, here are 3 businesses very similar to yours, and here's how we made them loads of money this year. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to go, nah, I don't want that.
Yep.
So the more and more good work we do, we include that in the pitches to go, so this company, similar to you, they wanted to achieve this thing the same as you do. They invested this and they got this out. Mm-hmm. Great. This company's in the same industry as you. They wanted something slightly different, but very similar. They invested £1 and got 267 million back.
Absolute game changer, that. That as well, from the person who delivers the pitches. Again, I've said this before, but I'm not selling in a pitch. I'm presenting the solution to their problem and evidence that we've got that solution for other similar very credible brands.
Yeah. The only thing that you have that is hard for some businesses with that is you have to genuinely be doing really good work.
Yes.
Because if you know really that you're selling yourself, but maybe you're not as good as you should be, you don't have those results, or you don't have those good things that people say about you, and you don't have the clients that are super happy. So if you're thinking, well, I don't have any good results from the stuff that I've done, the first step may be invest time in making sure that you can start getting those results. Because I think even some projects we've taken less profit as a business on things to use things as an example. We thought this would be a great thing to talk about to future prospects. Even if we invest a bit more, we want to, because this is going to be great to communicate the great work we can do.
And I think scaling it down, we're talking about examples now, working with global brands, generating tons of money and stuff. That's where we're at now. When we started, and it was me and you in our parents' back room, and we had no customers, we used what we had. I remember giving evidence of how I'd helped Dad's company and done some marketing for that, and it got him an extra 100 Twitter followers. You need to scale it up and think this isn't unachievable. It's just stepping stones. What's the best work you've done for your best customer to date? Have you helped someone get more awareness in the local area and that kind of thing? Or have you helped them get better cleaning in their offices and it looks really sparkly?
We've spoken about this previously, haven't we? Where it's not everyone has. We a year ago didn't have as case studies that were as good as we do now. Every time it improves over time with little steps, and then you can win slightly bigger clients, slightly bigger customers with bigger budgets, step by step to get there. And the start can be, we've got a testimonial from a guy that's just said we're brilliant.
Yep.
There's no hard evidence, but at least they're saying we're brilliant.
Yeah.
And then that could be the first step to win a slightly bigger contract or a bigger customer.
I think another important, really simple point, don't be a dick.
I find it hard, though.
You do. That's why you don't do the pitches, and I do. But I think it's that classic thing of just, I've met some people who are pitching, even to me, and they're just knobs. And they're just really, not even being nice to everyone around them. It's what are you doing? At least try and pretend to be a nice person.
Yeah. I think that lack of self-awareness sometimes is quite apparent.
Because even if you're the best in the industry and, you've worked with all these brands, you're so cool, but you're a twat, people aren't going to want to work with you. People want to work with people they like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think understanding what the other person wants. We're talking about pitching, and we've said make sure you understand.
So people buy from people they like. So, yeah, it's really important to be a nice person. And finally, the final thing I'd really say is don't try and convince the unconvincible. This is something, I don't watch much of Gary Vee's content anymore, but something popped up the other day, and he says this a lot about, if someone's clearly not into it, don't work your ass off to try and sell it to them.
Yeah, there are millions of potential customers you could be speaking to. Don't waste your time trying to convince someone who clearly doesn't want what you do.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
What about, to wrap up, kind of any common mistakes you think people make in pitches in this kind of process that you could give good advice to stop them making those mistakes?
Loads, but I'll try and be concise.
Okay.
The number one thing, and by the way, these are mistakes that I've made pitching, or we've made pitching, so this is how I know them. Number one, not believing strongly enough in what you're trying to sell. Early on, when we were pitching to people, or like sending out action plans or talking to them, selling to them, when we had no evidence of getting any results with any other customers, it's quite tough to appear like you're confident in yourself. So if you're trying to sell something that you don't believe in, move on and go sell something else, or get better at what you're selling.
You want to get to that point where you're feeling really confident in what you're selling and what you're pitching.
Yeah, that's one.
Nice.
Another one, not having enough evidence that you deliver on your promises. We've talked about case studies and testimonials. If your conversion rate is very low, I'd really focus on getting more of that evidence.
I guess it's that simple thing of show rather than tell. Anyone can say, I'll do really good stuff for you. But if you say, I'll do really good stuff for you, and then go, here's the really good stuff I do for people like you.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
You can see it. I don't need to sell this to you.
Exactly.
Nice.
Another really important one, not mentioning budget in the first point of contact. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. You should be mentioning and getting an idea of budget as early on as possible. So this is about qualifying. I mentioned the MAN acronym earlier. It's really important to really try and understand what their budget is. So the way I'll put, this is a difficult question to ask. Go on.
Yeah. So can we show how you might do that? Because I think this is this is really hard for people to get their head around, and I'm terrible at this about talking about money. And how do you first bring this up? So if I'm on a call, it's the discovery call, you've been asking me loads of questions about my toilet seat business.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, I'm now like, we'd really like to meet you. Sounds like you could help us sell more toilet seats. So can we put that in there?
Yeah. So this is where I start to. So before we do that, going back to what we talked about at the start, where you said you're currently, referencing the current state and the future state and the gap. This is where I'd go to. So you mentioned you're in this current state now.
Yeah.
You're not selling enough toilet seats.
Definitely not. No, Nigel's done a terrible job with the marketing.
Yeah. And where you want to get to is to not be using Nigel. Is to where in a year's time you want to be selling 1,000 toilet seats a month.
Yeah.
And you want that to all be trackable.
I want a gold-plated toilet seat in my mansion.
Yeah. The way we work with brands like you to do that is we produce really super creative content that taps into the culturally relevant situations your target market will understand. We then produce content that's mapped to their decision-making process, teamed up with really cleverly targeted paid ads to reach the right people at the right time with the right message to get them to buy. That's what we do.
That sounds great.
Yeah. There's a number of different ways we do that. Just to give you an idea of what this kind of would cost, or the investment fees, not cost. We'll give you an idea of the investment fees for this.
Yes, right.
It kind of ranges depending on how much content you want to produce and the production value, and also the ads and that kind of thing. So one kind of option is option A. This is about this level of investment, and you get about this level of support. Option B is about this level of investment, about this level of support. Option C is about that. Is that in line with any kind of budget that you were thinking about, just so we know that we're on the same page?
Yes, actually, I'm sure we can do something. No, not quite sure. The top end of that budget's a bit out.
That's fine. Well, that's absolutely fine.
But the lower two could be achievable.
Well, that's absolutely fine. Just to check we're on the same page. We can present different options to you.
We pay Nigel. Actually, we've been paying Nigel 200,000 a year.
Right.
And he's sold two toilet
seats.
You
really need to get rid of Nigel.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's. Sorry, I'm out of character now. Okay, Lloyd's back.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. The way that before you ask for their budget, because it's quite hard. You're talking about good stuff and go, how much money you got, basically. I think that's what people find hard. But you have gone, so this is kind of how we work normally, around this. And then you say, does that sound achievable? That's a much easier way to go into that question of basically how much money have you got?
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people if you ever ask anyone what budget have you got, everyone squirms and everyone thinks that you're just going to say, oh, you've got 10 grand budget, it'll be 10 grand. You got £1 million budget, it'll be £1 million.
Because from that question, you don't necessarily know their budget, but you
just know
that you've told them what your work costs for various things,
no,
and they have
what the investment fees are.
And they haven't gone, bloody hell.
Yeah.
No, I've got 50 quid.
Some do.
Yeah. But that's
and
what
then
I mean.
You go,
you work it
okay,
out.
this is, we need to do these discovery calls to figure that out. So, sorry, stay with Nigel.
Yeah. Nice. I think that's that nugget of information of how to bring up that budget question is going to be really valuable to the anchors out there.
Maybe we should end it there then, Lloyd, if you enjoyed that so much.
I think that'd be a great way to end the podcast then.
Cool. I think we should do more like that. We should do more examples of actually doing stuff, because I think that's quite interesting.
Because you have really valuable stuff to say, and I
you
like
don't.
pretending to be people having a conversation with you. Okay.
Great. Well, thanks for listening, anchors. Please do tell your friends, your family about the podcast if it's good, which I hope it is, because otherwise you wouldn't be listening. And we'll see you in your ears next week.
See you in your ears next week.